Welcome to the first event of the Solihull Chamber Festival of Business. I'm Lillian Ellican, Head of Membership at the Greater Birmingham Chamber of Commerce, and I'm really excited to be able to host the first event of this week's festival. It's a jam-packed week. We have 8 sessions that are going to be all about Solihull. So hopefully today's session will be interesting for all of you, and there'll be many more to come. So do have a look on our networking calendar or events calendar on our website to find out what else is on. So the festival was introduced to celebrate the resilience of the local business community. We've been through an incredible tough 16 months, still really difficult for certain businesses. Others are now reaping the benefits of further openings. So really we want to focus on what's ahead, Solihull's economic recovery, which is what the topic is for today, and then also other events focusing on what the future of the town centre will look like. How can we support our future generation as they get back into education and the workplace, talking about the green side of the recovery, so talking about net zero later this week as well, and also opportunities on our doorstep. Despite everything, there's still a lot of exciting things ahead. The Commonwealth Games and HS2 in particular, we're going to be focusing on Friday, when we'll be joined by someone from the Commonwealth Games and someone from HS2 to talk particularly about procurement. So lots of events coming up this week. So do join us if you can. Today's event is very kindly sponsored by Solihull Council. So thank you to them for making today's session possible. And a huge thank you as well to Aston University and Leap IT, who are our headline sponsors of this entire week. So today we're going to be talking about Solihull's economic recovery. And we're joined by Councillor Joe Tilsley, who's the Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Leisure, Tourism and Sport. And we're joined by Kevin Johns, Managing Director of Prime Chartered Accountants, who are based in the heart of Solihull. Kevin has also been Solihull Chamber President in the past and is still Chair of Solihull Bid. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from both of them shortly about Solihull's economic recovery and what's ahead for Solihull as a borough. We're also joined today by Stuart Watson, who is the Managing Director of Leap IT, as I mentioned, our headline sponsor for this entire week. And he's going to share some of his thoughts after we've heard from our speakers as well. If you've got any questions today for any of our speakers, we have allocated a little bit of time for Q&A as well. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A box, which you can use to drop in any questions that you have for Kevin, Joe or Stuart. If you have any technical difficulties throughout the session, please use the chat box to make us aware. We've got a fabulous Chamber Events team on site to help us and try and fix those for you. So thank you all for joining us this morning. Let's get started. So if Councillor Joe Tilsley is ready, I'm going to hand over to him.
Lillian, thank you very much for that and your kind words. I hope everybody can hear me all right. A little bit of a panic this morning, where about 5 minutes ago I still couldn't get into the session, but I'm really pleased to be here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Ian Course does not normally give up the opportunity to talk. He certainly never gives up the opportunity of talking about Solihull. So if you have a look at the Midlands News later on today, you will see the important reason for his being called away this morning. And he wanted me to share with you all his continuing thanks for everything you're doing for Solihull. And he looks forward to attending future chamber events and being able to speak at one of those events. As you can imagine, I've been given Ian Court's notes, and the slides I am using had been prepared for his benefit. And I understand he was going to speak for about 20 minutes. I hope you will not mind if I speak for a little less time. Any politician who speaks for more than 10 minutes is always chancing his luck, especially when they're combined with a PowerPoint slideshow. That said, what could be more important to you all than Solihull's economic recovery? And during this short presentation this morning, I wanted to touch upon everything the council And that means elected politicians and every single member of staff are doing to make businesses, your businesses, operate as successfully as they possibly can. Can I first just say a couple of things about some of the individuals involved? And I do stress to you all that these are committed people who have already invested much of their careers in Solihull. Solihull is blessed with having a chief executive, Nick Page, who has now given some 7 years of outstanding leadership to the borough. Blimey, you think about the number of chief executives Birmingham City Council has had in that 7-year period. You can see what consistency of leadership actually means. We have a deputy chief executive in Paul Johnson, whose reputation goes far wider than Solihull. And dare I say it, we have political leadership that have just seen a local election result that gives the Conservative group a clear mandate to continue their economic blueprint. We are lucky to have Ian Court as leader of the council, and I say that knowing that he's not listening to this particular presentation. He does have friends in high places, and I certainly hope he will not mind me mentioning that his son is the relatively new MP for Witney, David Cameron's old seat, and he is already a junior minister. It is a formidable team who are here in Solihull for the long term. And of course, central government will have an impact on your businesses. Solihull Council do not set personal income tax levels, corporation tax, or national insurance rates. I sometimes wish that we did. That said, this council creates an environment in which you all operate, and we play a part in setting business tax rates, though not all of it, and obviously we collect that rate. The council does have a huge impact on education, and it does have a huge impact on housing. Just those two areas alone have seen Solihull become the go-to area in the whole of the Midlands as generations of families continue to see Solihull as their destination, their aspirational destination. We cannot look forward without looking back, and I happen to believe that the future of Solihull cannot simply be left to chance. Our responsibility is to build on the work of our predecessors who laid the foundations to allow Solihull to grow and flourish. Such success has always brought new business. It's still a vibrant town centre and a confident and prosperous workforce. The challenge over the next 15 to 20 years is to ensure that the success of the borough continues and that every member of its community can share in a bright future for the next generation. And no one must be left behind. And we'll talk a little bit more, obviously, about what that means in terms of an inclusive future as we go through the slides. Could we move on to slide 2, which just illustrates the 3 strands of our economic response and recovery, as well as reminding everyone of what the council has done over the last 15 months of the COVID pandemic. In terms of people, we have tried to support all those who are entering the job market and who are looking for work. That includes supporting our young people and apprentices to find appropriate local job opportunities, as well as developing a skilled workforce for the future. In terms of businesses and sectors, here I hope you will all agree that the council ensured a swift implementation of national support grants. We carried out one-to-one engagement with our strategic businesses and key sectors, and we tried to ensure that every single business in the borough had access to every single part of the available support. In terms of projects and places, we continue to build a focus on building on Solihull's economic success and the growth momentum of recent years. We need to capture the benefits of HS2 and the interchange station by accelerating infrastructure investments in the hub, and we need to ensure that things move forward at pace so that our local supply chains can benefit. Could I also mention here the recovery of the town centre, and I will talk a little bit more about this a bit later on, and all of the other centres across the borough. We have to make sure they are supported to maintain their places as the destination of choice to visit and shop. As we come out of lockdown, we have to make sure our customers feel safe and ensure our businesses are prepared and well equipped to deal with social distancing, a changing market and consumer demands. Slide 3, please. Slide 3 is all about strong economic performance. And as we all know, Solihull has some of the strongest economic fundamentals, not only in the Midlands, but indeed the whole of the wider country. We are blessed with connectivity, an advantageous location, a highly skilled workforce, high value manufacturing, and the all-important presence of not one, but 3 national economic assets: Jaguar Land Rover, the airport, and the NEC. Pre-pandemic, Solihull was achieving very high growth rates in terms of economic output and jobs growth, with a 32% gross value added between 2015 and 2018, compared to just 12% across the UK. During the same period, we experienced a 28% jobs growth compared to just 3% for the wider UK. But our economic recovery and future growth will be influenced by how well those major assets we possess can emerge from the pandemic. Jaguar Land Rover has hugely ambitious plans to become all electric from 2025. How will the airport and the NEC recover from the impact on the travel and tourism industry? That said, all of us can take great pride in the fact that the borough's attractiveness as an investment location has continued to be reinforced, with 33 new investments recorded in 2021, including 7 foreign direct investments, including headquarters investments such as those made, I don't know if that is one of them, as those made by the Spanish e-scooter company Silence, and the recent announcement of US real estate company Ardent purchasing Touchwood Shopping Centre. Again, a really positive sign for the whole of the borough. More good news came in December last year, when the Sunday Times published its annual Fast Track 100 companies in the UK, and 3 of those companies had their headquarters in Solihull: Lounge Underwear, Gymshark, and Grenade. Even in districts in London, there isn't one other place in the country that have 3 businesses in that top 100. Slide 4, please. I do like these illustrations. They're absolutely fantastic. And this is about Solihull Town Centre Master Plan and the council investment. And I am very, very conscious that you'll be, for those who are listening to Nick Page tomorrow, you'll get a much more comprehensive update from him about what we're thinking of doing. But Solihull Town Centre now has a refreshed Town Centre Master Plan, which provides a framework for investment and development right through to 2036. We want to achieve a thriving, vibrant and visionary town centre across 4 very large areas of change. The first one, a modern integrated transport hub at Solihull railway station with improved pedestrian and cycle connectivity across the whole of the town. A new gateway at Westgate, which we can see in the slide there, with Grade A of office development, a redevelopment of Mell Square for mixed uses, and fourthly, and maybe most excitingly of all, a mixed-use development at Eastgate, which will comprise a new civic building, public space, arts and culture, retail and leisure, and a new residential neighbourhood. No council can do everything itself, but we have not been frightened to invest in the vision for Westgate and the Eastgate proposals, and you will all be aware of the recent acquisition of Mell Square. Really exciting developments supported by the council in a very financial way. Slide 5. Slide 5 is a strong future vision. And there, can I just touch a little bit on UK Central Hub and the Arden Cross? And everything is exciting in this vision for the future, but the growth plans for UKC Hub, including the HS2 interchange station site, really are of national significance. £50 million has been secured for infrastructure investment in this year's March budget. We are also progressing the Arden Cross Master Plan, including proposals for a health and innovation campus. And whatever people's views on HS2 are, it will bring this borough within 40 minutes of both London and Manchester. And can I give you some of the really key hub statistics? 70,000 new and safeguarded jobs, 650,000 square meters of new commercial space, up to 5,000 new homes, and it will add an additional 6.2 billion GVA per annum, and 1.3 million people will be within a 45-minute public transport commute. A really exciting world-class development. And slide 6, please. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I make no apology about saying how personally delighted I am to see the importance the council is now attaching to leisure, tourism and sport as we move forward. The Commonwealth Games is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to showcase Solihull to a whole worldwide audience. The borough will be seen across the world, and some 6,500 athletes and officials from 72 Commonwealth nations will be taking part in 11 days of sport. More than 1 million spectators are anticipated, with all the associated accommodation and hospitality requirements. Solihull has to be ready to make sure we get our share of those visitors. Throughout the last 18 months, the Chamber has been updated with our plans about how we intend to maximise the Games, and planning has already started in relation to some of the key things that will be going on, the Queen's Back Relay, as well as a series of cultural events that will take place from March next year. We want local businesses to be able to capitalise on procurement opportunities, as well as supporting local events. And business and employment opportunities include contract opportunities totaling £300 million, some 43,000 game time roles, including 12,000 volunteers. There is an obvious emphasis on supporting young people and unemployed adults to access some of these games opportunities. And just to remind everyone, Solihull is a host authority for the Games, with 6 events taking place at the NEC. As the Cabinet Member for Sport in the Borough, I believe a successful Games is not only about delivering a world-class feast of sporting entertainment for 2 weeks, but what sort of legacy will be left. That work has already started in the Borough, and we want to see a revitalised North Solihull Sports Centre and a modernised outdoor facility at that centre reopened to coincide with the Games. We also have an ambition to deliver at least one new major sporting hub in the borough, again to open as the games begin. What a fabulous business opportunity for any company to have their name associated with a new sporting hub just to be opened at the same time as the games. I've already mentioned the figure of 1 million spectators descending on the region, and we have to ensure that Solihull itself is ready with its visitors offer. We all have a responsibility to promote Solihull at every opportunity. Our towns and local centres must be looking their absolute best. Retail, the food and drink offer, every individual attraction, our parks and green spaces. They will all have a role to play. Chamber have been kept fully informed of the new web platform Visit Solihull, which is now fully launched, and we will need that to cater, make sure that it caters for the whole of the world. Slide 7, the green recovery. Well, the green recovery is at the heart of the council's economic recovery plan, in line with the council's climate change commitments to reduce the borough's carbon emissions to net zero by 2041. And as many of you will know, this is also the regional target. At the borough level, the council is progressing its climate change prospectus for clean growth, clean air, nature gain, and none of this will be possible without communication, engagement, and education. Accordingly, we are developing a net zero action plan for the borough. Our current emissions profile is 1.3 million tonnes per year. So we are determined to tackle the issue head on with action plan areas designed to reduce emissions within non-domestic buildings, domestic buildings, transport waste and industry, and the natural environment and the energy supply. And if anybody's read the Daily Telegraph this morning, you will know just what a huge challenge we've set ourselves with trying to change all of those things. We are delighted that the council has just been granted planning permission for a new low carbon energy centre next door to Tudor Grange Leisure Centre. You can see the proposed building in the slide. It will distribute heat directly into the town centre buildings via a network of underground pipes, and we hope customers could be hooked up and start benefiting from the network as early as spring 2023. Electric vehicles for residents and businesses is a central part of how we will decarbonise the borough in future years. I don't know if we should be pleased or a bit sad, but to date, 56 electric vehicle charging bays have been switched on across the borough. What a pity it's not 560. But as part of that rollout, charging points were installed across the borough, including in Shirley, Knoll, Alton, Solihull, Blythe, Linden, Elmdon, Dorridge and Smiths Wood. So it really is across the borough. But much more needs to be done. 56 is nowhere near enough. And slide 8, finally, please, which is our inclusive growth. And ladies and gentlemen, you, the Chamber, have been at the very heart of inclusive growth in the borough. Certainly, as I have attended your meetings over these last 3 years, I see examples again and again of businesses supporting individuals through mentoring, training, and job opportunities. The council will continue to work with you all to tackle youth unemployment and develop a skilled workforce fit for the future. The council is proud of its record of working with schools to identify and support those young people identified as being at risk of becoming NEET, and indeed those who have already become NEETs themselves. The council and Solihull Community Housing has recently created 38 placements for long-term unemployed young people, as part of the National Kickstart scheme. And we are working with the Department for Work and Pensions to set up a new youth hub at the Recruitment and Training Centre in Chelmsley Wood Shopping Centre. The Council is engaged with regional skills planning to identify and address skills gaps, to meet current and future industry needs, and to develop the workforce for the future. Well, ladies and gentlemen, can I thank you for your patience with my whistle-stop tour through the slides there. As always, as a non-business person, I acknowledge the debt we owe to you all as our wealth creators. I know there will be time for questions later on in this session, but as I often say at chamber meetings, my role is to ensure that your voice is heard loud and clear by the council, and that does include both elected politicians and all those hundreds of people employed by the council from the chief executive down. I hope very much you've been excited by the vision of the council for the next few years as we go forward. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Tilsley. That was a really insightful overview of your vision with the council and some of the plans. It also has touched upon quite a few of the topics that we'll be covering in more detail this week. Councillor Tilsley will be on hand for any questions, so if you have got any questions for him later in the session, please do use the Q&A box. And if any of the topics were of particular interest, have a look at the sessions the rest of the week when we're covering them in greater detail as well. So thank you again, Councillor Tilsley. And Kevin, can I hand over to you now?
Firstly, thank you, Councillor Tilsley, for what Solihull Council has done for the borough, not just over the last 16 months, but over the last number of years. Government and councils create an environment, and without that environment being set, us as business people and business owners are unable to unleash that growth. You know, they create the environment, we create the growth, and it's great to see SMBC invest in Mel Square. It's an ongoing issue for so many town centres. The lack of investment we've seen in town centres, the change in shopping behaviours and everything else. So to see a council actually put their money where their mouth is and actually invest in that going forward is phenomenal. And also we've seen the council take a lead on the Urban Growth Company to maximise the return for the area on HS2. Yeah, I think we all know originally that was just going to be an interchange, a train station and nothing else. What the council have done have taken that opportunity to develop that for us all as a region. So what I'm going to look at, as we've talked about, you know, the council, the government create an environment. Business people are the people who deliver that growth in the real long term. So obviously, what steps do we need all to make sure that we survive? You know, we've all gone through what has been probably the most chaotic 16 months of our lives, not just personally, but from a business point of view. So looking at a few steps now of what I think we need to do as business people to make sure we see where we come out of this. It's important to know that more businesses fail coming out of a recession and out of difficulty than when they go in. The recent ONA survey on the impact of the COVID pandemic is suggesting that at the end of April this year, 15% of all businesses felt they were at risk of failing. Now, that sounds a hell of a big number, 15%, but move that into actual number of businesses which are at risk of failing. It's 960,000 businesses at risk of failing within the next year. So what can we do? What can you do to make sure your business isn't going to be one of those statistics? Firstly, we need to see where we are today. You know, what damage has this pandemic done to our businesses? Let's get a snapshot. Let's understand where we are, understand what support we've taken. And understand, before we start planning for the future. But that's not just in a financial state. That's all about the people as well. We've had a lot of talk in the press about mental health, and particularly children at schools in mental health, their poor education, or the lack of education over a period of time. The same applies to our people in our businesses right across the borough. we don't stop going to school and stop learning. We continue to learn every day. And I think probably most of us have learned more over the last 16 months than we have for the last few years. And we've had to learn new skills. Now, we are by nature human interaction, and therefore that isolation will have caused damage to a lot of our people, and it will take time to recover from that. Have we seen the worst yet? I'm sorry to say, I think not. As I just said, 15% of businesses are at risk of failing. So we're going to talk about what we can do about that. What we can look at short-term planning from a business point of view and how we can protect ourselves going forward. And it won't be a surprise to think, I'm not going to talk about profit and loss accounts and balance sheets here. Cash is king. Cash is what actually makes a business go bust in the short term. So we're going to look at some ideas of what you can do to look at those cash flows. And then we can't lose sight of our long-term goals. This pandemic has really put into focus that people aren't immortal. One of the things which I do when we talk to businesses is look at exit strategy, succession strategy more than exit strategy, I'd say. There's nothing greater we like to do here than see clients' businesses move down their management or their family trees, because that shows what's important to them. But those goals have changed. People have realized that, they might not be living till they're 95 and carry on working till they're 80. This virus could hit anybody at any time. And therefore, people have reevaluated their goals. So where are we today? As I said, number one, we need to evaluate our people. We need to look at mental health, how people have been on furlough. Some people are still on furlough. Can you believe that the government would have supported people with wages for 16 months and carrying on for the next few months? But those people, reintroduction into work is going to be hard. These people have not been working for a long time. And as businesses, we can't expect them just to click on and be working at 100% capacity straight on. We've also got to be looking at the anxiety of people coming back to work and supporting those people, particularly with families who suffer from COVID. And, we're not going to be in a situation where this is just going to be 21st of June comes, touch wood, and everything's fine. We're all restrictions off. We go back to normal. I think we're all holding our breath on that one anyway. But even if it happened, in truth, the reality is the world's moved on. Anxieties now are prevalent in our workforce, and we need to support that workforce in that situation. As I just said, young people, it's reasonably accepted that their learning at school has been disadvantaged. Well, actually, our people haven't been trained as well. And therefore, spending more time retraining and upskilling these people a bit more slowly, getting them all back to their skill bases where we were hoping they would be, is very, very important. Also, what we've seen in people in a lot of businesses, a number of more people heading towards their retirement age have decided to go, I've had enough. I don't need to be carrying on working. Quality of life is more important now. And therefore, we've lost those skills. We've lost that knowledge base, which does, I do think, we're going to have a large unemployed young workforce. But I do think the opportunities when the marketplace picks up is actually that young workforce. There will be opportunities for them, as long as we as business people are prepared to train them. The next one is financial. We need to review our cash flows. We need to see where we are. We know we need to look at profits in long run, but we don't need to focus on profits at the moment. What we do need to see is, where would we have been over the last 12 months if it wasn't for government support? If we hadn't had our furlough money, if we hadn't had our grants from a council, if we hadn't had our rates removed and not having to pay rates, and rework our figures on where would we really be, I have to say, a lot of businesses have done better than they were expecting over lockdown because of the financial support which has been offered to them. Where would have they really been if that wasn't there? That's the underlying worry, is that people are really, there's a mask being clouded over businesses' finances by the fantastic support we've all received. Property, I think first lockdown, everybody expected offices to be shut, boarded up, and town centres would close. There wouldn't be a City of London, etc., etc. I think that whole belief has changed due to the forced continual lockdowns, and people do need to come back to the offices. But it will be different. We will have more hybrid working. We will be having more flexible spaces within our offices. This has been happening down in London and in the big offices in Birmingham, but it's going to come to the smaller offices in Solihull. And it's those smaller offices, what we've got to be worrying about is how do we keep that interaction with our people when we're only seeing them 2 or 3 times a week, not 5 times a week. So we are going to move to hybrid working. But the real call on here is trust. Who makes the decision on who works in the office, when you can work at home, where you can work from home, where are those efficiencies? And business owners have really got to start placing trust in their employees. Trust in their employees to do the right thing. We're all in this together. And we saw that during the start of the pandemic. It absolutely was so evident that everybody knuckled down, and it was all, great British spirit of we're all in this together and we'll get through this together. We can't lose that now we come back into the workplace and go back to old methods. We need to make sure we're investing in the technologies, and rather than just going, oh, we've done it, we've got through it, we need to advance those technologies. But probably the most important thing, and the reason why people like working with SMEs, doing business with SMEs, and people like to work in SMEs, is the culture. They're not a number. They're not just one of 2,500 people working in a skyscraper in London, etc. They're real people talking to real people. And that is the one thing where the SME market particularly has its USP over any of the multinationals, and what the SMEs need to start focusing on and really shouting about is that they treat people fairly. So we talk about, is it all over? We said 21st of June is going to come and we hope we're all back to normal, but we don't think we will be. So when will all your staff be back from furlough? Are you all going to return to the office or not? These are questions you need to start asking yourselves if you haven't asked them already. When will you all be starting to work at 100% again? Most people are working, but very few are working at 100% capacity. For public trade, I think we're talking about 60%, desperate to reopen. But even when they do, will they really get back to that full capacity? Are you prepared to stop receiving the grants and furlough support you've received for the last 18 months? Some people have got dependent on that. I've heard a number of young people, I do some rugby coaching, a number of you will know. And a few of those younger people, 18-year-olds, have been doing, pub jobs, as you would expect. And they find it quite offensive now that they're asked to go back into work. They've been paid. They might have only done a month's work and they've been paid for a year, never doing anything. So there's a cultural issue there of getting these people back to working correctly. We're now going to see cash flow effect of starting to repay bounce back loans and CBILS loans. They were a lifeline last year. I think the number is something like £43.5 billion of bounce back loans were given by the government, or supported by the government, should I say, and another £19 billion of CBILS loans. They all are going to start to be repaid over the next, starting probably from about now onwards. They started in May, so 12 months time, they'll be starting to be repaid from now. And the Office of National Statistics are reckoning that 60% of the bounce back loans will not be repaid because of company failure. That's going to have an effect on all of us on taxes in the long run. How many of us have taken rent holidays? We've got to look at the cash flow figures of how we're going to start repaying that thing. Landlords have been or been forced not to be able to evict anybody. There's been nobody's been able to liquidate companies, etc., and do if they've had COVID reasons for falling on bad times. However, those have all come to an end. So the pressures are now going to really come on businesses, and really, we should be looking to the government to just offer a bit more support and making sure that landlords don't turn nasty, and we don't have people pulling the rug very quickly on what will be, long-term, still very sustainable businesses. Look at, are the risks higher now? Yes. Business closures, forced business closures we're going to talk about, fell during 2020. Okay, so why was that? Government support, we've talked about it a few times already. Massive government support. And cost cutting due to reduced sales. So when I say 15% of businesses are looking at risk now, so when you go into recession, you've already had a high sales period prior to it. You're going to collect that money and you save costs because you're not replacing your stock. You maybe laid off a few staff, etc., etc. But when you're coming out of recession, there's always a risk that you're going to run out of cash. The reason for that is you're now going to have to up stock. You're going to have to get your stock levels back. If you look at the retail sectors, they're probably paying wages for a month before they actually make a sale, or they get their shops ready to trade. They've employed all their staff. They've bought more stock. They might not sell that stock for maybe 2 or 3 months. That requires cash flow. And that cash flow is why we find out businesses fail during coming out of recession. So short-term planning is all about cash flow. Every business should be looking at daily, weekly cash flows. That isn't just going, where are we? That is predicting where we are going to be. So, SMEs should be actually having an Excel spreadsheet, which is actually forecasting 6 months out on a weekly basis on what they believe their cash flow is going to be. And I know what most businesses say. Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know what my sales are. But you can know. You can look back historically and say, okay, I was taking £20,000 a week. Well, let's put £20,000 a week in as income. Okay, what were my wages costs? We know what our wages costs are. We can predict it. We know what our direct debits costs are. We know when we make our purchases. And you work those figures out. It's not complicated. It doesn't need a fancy accountant to do this work. It is simply cash in, cash out, forecasting where we think it's going to be. We also need to ensure we plan for one-offs. Okay, our VAT payments. The amount of people say to me, oh, cash flow would be all right if I didn't have to pay for that. Well, you are collecting it. It happens every 3 months. You need to pay it. Or, oh, I have that corporation tax bill. I wasn't expecting it. It happens every year. Expect bank lending to be more difficult going forward. And why do I say that? Well, what was the numbers I just said? 43 million and 19 million pounds of loans, billion pounds of loans they've just done. Banks are businesses. They work on liquidities. If they've lent that money, they can't lend it again. Their liquidity ratios are still important. The Bank of England still monitor those. And therefore, they are not going to be able to lend money as easily without additional government support to them, or the government supplying additional support to them in one way or another. So early discussions with banks are essential, not just banks, but other lenders. Demonstrate controls in place. If you've got your cash flows, you've got your monthly fee. If you're talking 4 or 5 months out, I'm going to have a problem here. It's a lot better to conversation with your bank manager than it is, I have a problem today. At that point, you're not having early discussions, so you're not demonstrating you've got controls in place. And the final one is, do not overtrade. Now, what overtrading is that massive surge in sales. It's a massive surge where you've got to go out and buy stuff urgently to meet that sales demand. You will run out of cash very, very quickly without financial support. That will see you go bust. It is the most dangerous thing coming out of recession, and thing which is so not looked at by business people, because they focus on, it's great to win a sale, it's great to win that business, but you've got to be able to trade it and buy your products. So long term, personal goals. And when I say that, like I said earlier, a lot of people have changed their personal goals. People aren't invincible any longer. They've realized that life expectancies can shorten very quickly for no reason. And therefore their personal goals and objectives are key to this. But instead of just the personal goals of the shareholders, the owners, we need to look at all stakeholder goals. where is that work-life balance of employees? Where are we? Are we going to start looking at, buying more locally? We've seen a lot of issues at the start of the pandemic of we don't have the products in this country. We've got all these issues now. We're coming on to it here with legislation, with trading with the EU, people complaining how much more difficult it is. Well, should we be looking more locally to sourcing our products, supporting our local economy and our local employees and local trades? And that is where we're talking about stakeholder goals. Look at what the stakeholder goals are around your business. Can you do things differently? EU, we will over the next year hopefully get to a balance on where our trading arrangements are with the EU and how we do it with all the export and import controls and everything else. But it does give us that opportunity of trading elsewhere in the world. That we should look at that as an opportunity rather than as a barrier. Net zero, Councillor Till has already raised that. We've got 20 years to get to net zero in Solihull. That sounds a long, long way away. But all businesses can do small things. Water bottles to all our staff. So there's no any plastic water bottles any longer. Things like, we got rid of plastic bags and use paper bags. We've made a policy that we will not buy any more company cars which aren't electric cars. And then we are in the process of talking about the situation of, incentivizing people to use public transport. We provide everybody with car park space, which costs us money, but we don't provide any support for public transport. It doesn't feel quite right as a business in that sense. So that's now going to be looked at. I mean, equality, as Councillor Tilsley, the Chamber's doing great work on that in its own environment and making sure the board look at the equality of equal opportunity for all across the borough. And that's something we all need to do. We are going to be legislating with this over time. It will become one of the measures we're looking at as businesses, and therefore it is important to do that. And finally, once we set our long-term goals and we look at them, let's revisit them annually. Let's re-look at them. Let's talk about them. Let's talk to our teams about them. Let's share these goals and not hide them. And one of the things, which isn't on my slide, but I will mention it, is, one of the things we're going to be raising with our staff recently is, volunteering at Commonwealth Games. I've signed up already, and we're going to be offering an opportunity for a number of our staff to volunteer fully paid at the Commonwealth Games next year, as our support to the Commonwealth Games and this region and everything else. So thank you for listening. I'm going to hand back to Lillian now, and I'm sure there'll be some Q&As in a while. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to try and stop sharing this screen.
All right, yep, I'll talk whilst you do that.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that, Kevin. I think that was really, really insightful. Lots of food for thought in terms of what to think about and how to prepare for the recovery of individual businesses. Also some great suggestions on net zero and the Commonwealth Games, tying in really nicely with some of our future sessions this week. If you have any questions for Kevin off the back of that, please use the Q&A box to make us aware. Before we kick off the Q&A, I'm just going to briefly hand over to Stuart from Leap IFT, our headline sponsors of this week.
Oh, thank you, Lillian. Morning, everyone. I'm going to start off with quite an amazing fact, actually. The UK's output per hour and our wages per hour is roughly the same now as it was in 2008. So despite 13 years of technology enhancements, we're producing more or less the same stuff and paying the same wages as we did in 2008. Now, it's this productivity issue is what I want to quickly talk about for the next 5 minutes. For all the people that I've not yet had the chance to meet, my name is Stuart Watson. I'm one of the directors at Leap IT. We're a technology company and we provide IT support and IT consultancy to businesses all throughout the UK. My aim in the next 5 minutes is to explain a little bit about productivity and also the issue around it and what you can do about it within your business. So I'm going to split it into 3 sections. I want to talk about, firstly, the UK productivity problem, and secondly, what causes productivity issues within your business, and lastly, how you can fix them. So first of all, the UK productivity problem. I'll let you into a secret here. The only thing that likes change is a baby with a wet nappy. And it's quite ironic that the only thing that is guaranteed in life is change, and yet we are all naturally resistant to it. So this resistance to change is going to have an impact on your productivity. So for example, a worker in Germany, they could finish work Thursday afternoon and they would get the same amount done as a UK worker would working for a full week. Now, I know everyone is aware that there is a skills shortage. Finding the right people is very, very hard. This is going to factor into your productivity of your business. But whilst there is a skills shortage, you do need to be aware that the skilled people are out there. The problem you've got is you're going to have to pay more to get them. It's a simple case of supply and demand. So if you've got to pay more to get them, then you're going to have to earn more money within your business, which means you need to look at the productivity, because that goes straight to your bottom line, increases in productivity. As well as the skills shortage, we've got the financial crisis in 2008, Brexit as well. The past 4 years, that's been kicking down the road. That's had an impact as well on businesses and their productivity. But as we've heard earlier, recovery is definitely on the way now. Personally, I think we're in a fantastic position in the UK. Whether you're for or against Brexit, we are where we are, and we're in a great position now to kick on. Business owners, they can't rely on basic systems anymore to run their business. And by basic, I mean that you can't have the likes of Excel and Outlook running your business. If you've got an old Access database, for example, and you're using that to run your business, it's just not going to cut the mustard anymore. You really need to think about doing things differently. Even if you've got a CRM in place at the moment, if it's older than 4 years, you really need to look at it again and revisit it. So that's the first bit around the UK productivity problem. Secondly, I'm going to move on to what causes productivity issues within your business. So there's a phrase within IT circles that says, if you don't have a system, then you're the system. And it really is very, very true. We see a lot of companies with complicated manual processes in place. And it is due to the fact that there is a lack of system to pick up the slack, as it were. If you're relying on people to remember what needs to be done, this is going to slow you down. If you need to speak to someone about what's going on with a project or a job or a sale or where we are with it, again, this is going to slow you down. This is going to hit productivity. Another thing that causes productivity issues in your business is a lack of automation. Like I say, people remembering what they have to do, when things are coming up, when's it's due, it's going to have issues within your business. I mentioned earlier about the skill shortages that there is in place, and a good system can actually get stupid people to do very clever things because it's organized. Data duplication, we see a lot of this as well. So we had a client that came to us, and this is purchase invoices were what we were looking at for them. They would receive them in via email over a PDF. It would go to 3 different people, so they're all then getting it in their mailboxes, and it's distracting them. Someone then moved it into a subfolder in the inbox. One lady printed out the PDF invoice, went to the printer, obviously got it off, then went to Sage, entered it into Sage, then hole punched it, put it in a file, and put it in the filing cabinet. So there's a lot of duplication going on there, And there are much easier ways of doing this kind of thing. So we attack that with them first of all. As well as this data duplication, you've also got slow kit, slow hardware, slow laptops. Anyone that is booting up their machine and then going off to make a cup of tea, which we hear all the time, your hardware is out of place, and having a faster machine is going to save you time, and it's going to mean that you're more productive. So those are some of the things that cause productivity issues within your business. And then the last bit, probably the most important bit I want to talk about, is how you can fix them. So there was a recent report that says that leaders that double down on their IT investment, they're growing 5 times faster than businesses that don't. And you need to think of your business as like a Formula One car. I don't know a lot about Formula One, but they're constantly adjusting this wing, adjusting this bolt, this, like I say, I don't know much about it, but they're constantly reviewing the car to make it quicker, to shave seconds off a lap. Like an athlete, you've got to be tuned. And you need to look at your business in the same kind of way. Is there a way I can reduce the amount of clicks someone has to go to get to the piece of information that they need? These small things that you probably disregard because you've already got a system that works, these little percentage changes are what makes you more productive, and it goes straight to the bottom line. You need to utilize IT more and the benefits that is in IT. We've got to move away from this fear of change. We often approach clients with new technology, and the kind of first position, oh, it wouldn't work for us because of this, because of that. We need to rule out that it wouldn't work and rule things in more and think, yes, we're going to adopt this. We're going to try and put this in place. That will really help you. Do things in modules as well. Don't take on the whole process. Like I said earlier, maybe start with purchase invoices or something in accounts or something in project management, how you deliver your work. Start with individual modules. Don't bite off more you can chew. Also, get everyone involved in the process, the entire process. They're then going to have skin in the game, and they're invested in the process. They're going to want it to work for you. Build your documentation. We see so many businesses that have literally nothing written down on how things work. This hampers when you have new starters coming in because they're asking questions of their peers, and all this noise reduces you, slows you down. So get documentation in place. And think as well, if you were starting out today, you wouldn't go to the likes of Outlook and Excel and old Access databases to start your business. New businesses that are starting today, they're going to the cloud. They're getting subscription models, per license models. Subscription is where everything is going. And you've got to be aware of these businesses opening up because they're going to be catching you up, and you're in danger of getting left behind. And lastly, the last thing I want to say is IT, unfortunately, is never done. It's never finished. It's always got to be reviewed. So you put something in place and then you review it again every 6 months, and you need to build that into your business and make that part of your process of running your business to continually review, because it's moving all the time, IT, and you want to get on board with it. So I hope that has helped a little bit, explain a little bit about the productivity issue that we've got in the UK, also what causes it within your business, and lastly, what you can do about it. Thanks ever so much for listening. I'm sorry I've run over. I'll be sticking around for the Q&A, and also we're obviously happy to speak to any businesses that want to look at their IT. But in the meantime, I'll hand back to you, Lillian.
Lovely. Stuart, thank you very much for that, and thank you again for sponsoring.
No
again,
problem.
Really food for thought there on productivity, some interesting facts, and probably something to consider as well in business as we come out into recovery. I'm very conscious of time, and I know these days with Zoom meetings back to back, conscious some of our delegates might have to jump on another call straight away. We haven't had any questions in the Q&A, which is either because we have answered everybody's questions or because there is a lot to digest from this session, and I suspect it might be the latter. So what I was going to say, if anyone does have any questions for our delegates today, please do email them across and I will pick up with Kevin, Councillor Tilsley or Stuart to get them answered for you. If that's all right with all the speakers. So thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you all for giving up your time and presenting to our delegates today. Do have a look on our website to see what's coming up the rest of the week as we celebrate Solihull. So yes, have a great Monday and hopefully I'll see you all at the next session soon.